Welcome. We're so excited to have you here today. Jaspercolin is a global research and analytics firm that's helping to transform data into decisions. And so today's conversation is part of our Global Thought Leadership Initiative. From silo to synergy, redefining healthcare research ecosystems. We're so honored to be joined by Dr. Arthur Wallace today, a leading clinician researcher and innovator who serves as Vice Chair of Anesthesiology and Perioperative Care at the University of California. How would you personally describe the current state of collaboration across clinicians, researchers, and innovators in healthcare today?
Let's take the time before 2025. There was a real collaboration between basic research, clinical research, and implementation research. And I'm an MD PhD, and one of the things that's the point of an MD PhD is that doctors are pretty good at treating medicine and treating diseases, but they're not trained on how to do research. And PhDs are trained how to do research, but they may not quite know what the clinical question is, or they don't quite know what to focus on, or they're focused on some very basic thing. And you need somebody to talk to researchers and say, this is what we need to work on. And then once it's figured out how to solve the problem, to take that step from research across into clinical medicine. That approach or procedure or mechanism reduces perioperative mortality and improves outcome for patients. So you need this collaboration between basic science and clinical work. When I started in anesthesia, perioperative mortality for older people may be 5 to 8%. We did a series of epidemiologic studies where we put little tape recorders on them to record the EKG, and we found 40% of people at risk were having myocardial ischemia when they had surgery. And 15% of that was before the surgery. People were just thinking about surgery. And we found it raised the risk of dying threefold, and it raised long-term problems. And so here's this thing that we can work on, myocardial ischemia, that's connected to poor outcomes, that's dynamic, and it's something we can affect. So then what we did was we tried a bunch of tests. That didn't help us. Then we did a series of 20 drug studies where we looked at mechanisms that we knew were associated with myocardial ischemia. We found 4 drugs that reduced the risk, and we followed people out, and sure enough, that reduced the risk of death. And then I did something that's kind of rare. I was like, I did this science, and I wrote a paper and put it in the Journal of Medicine, put it into my clinic at the hospital, and we cut our operative mortality 35%. And I was like, wow, that science thing really works. So I went through the world literature, and there were about 100 papers on how do you help people implement science. You discover science, if nobody uses it, 3 people read your paper and nobody cares. You have to get it out into the real world. And so I spent about 10 years running around, giving lectures, handing out free pens and sandwiches, and saying, hey, this is how to do it. And we could use our computer system to show that it was reducing mortality. And so finally we did a study where we looked at 40,000 people who came through our system who either got the therapy that we were recommending or not. And we showed, sure enough, it cut the risk of death about 35%. Now, when you think about that, the cost per life saved was $33. The alternative therapy cost per life saved was $2.6 million. So it was reducing mortality for $33 a patient was a pretty good thing. Research usually starts with a problem. Like our work on the medications was people die when they have surgery. That's bad. I'm working on a new monitor right now. And where did it come from? It came from a code that I went to when I was a resident of a 12-year-old girl. And she had come in for some oral surgery, and someone said, gee, she'll be more comfortable if she spends the night in the hospital. Nurse came in the room at 2 a.m., gave her a shot of morphine. 3 a.m., she's found dead. Well, that sucks. Everybody thinks that's bad and destroyed everyone involved. How do you fix it? What do you do to not have that problem again? So a lot of medical research is some disaster, and you look at it, I don't want to do that again. And so the clinician sees the disaster, and then they go to the researchers and say, fix this. and then we collaborate across the space and figure out how to make it all work. But it's, it can be 10 or 20 years to do that. It's not a trivial thing. Well, the first thing is we have this really cool invention that came about, I don't know, a couple thousand years ago called the university. And the university is basically a think tank that flushes. I mean, it's a really great system where you have researchers and you have clinicians and you have people functioning. Then the next thing you need is you need money. And money fuels all kinds of things. If you don't have money, it's harder. There's a saying in the aviation business that with enough money and thrust, anything will fly. That's true in research. And like I work in the VA, and the VA has four missions: clinical care, research, education, and national defense. The research part's really important. And so we have a computer system that's the best in the world called Vista. It's across 1,400 clinics, 150 hospitals. It's got 30 million patient records in it. And so that system is absolutely indispensable for developing. So when we developed the PTSD drug, we found it in Vista. It's a national treasure and really, really valuable. See, this is the problem. People think that companies do this. Companies pay for all this stuff. In reality, researchers are trained in universities. And so researchers train in university, they train in university labs. If you've got the funding for research in universities, you're not going to have a bunch of researchers to go out into the industry world. A lot of the ideas that go to industry started in some lab. And the other thing is, let me show you something. This thing, see this thing right here? You have one of these things. This little flat panel right here called an LCD screen. This came from a DoD grant to develop display screen you could see in the sunlight in a fighter plane when I was in high school. This little camera back here, the camera came from a DoD grant for a Sidewinder missile. Siri came from a DoD grant to do AI stuff for fighter planes. So you think of this as something made by Apple. In reality, the math, the CPU, the GPU, the cameras, the machine vision, all that stuff came from research done in universities, paid for by DARPA grants. And if you gut all that stuff, people won't have the things to develop. That's the problem.